Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we talk about problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with a video.
As far as I know, mothers are supposed to be supportive and understanding. That's who my mother is to me. But my mother-in-law is the polar opposite. She is literally a pain in the neck. She works, but thinks she shouldn't spend her money on herself because she has a son who should cater to her every need. That's absurd. Who still thinks like that in the 21st century? I can't remember when she ever came visiting and brought anything for the house or even her grandkids. I know that it's a problem because my mom doesn't act the same way. When we just got married, my husband had thought that the way his mom treated him and always had demands was normal. He thought it was his duty to cater to her. We had a big fight about it once when he spent money for our home on getting his mom what she wanted. I let him know that he was now a married man and had responsibilities. He couldn't afford to be like that with his mom. I didn't mean that he shouldn't give her money or buy her things, just that his family could not suffer for it if he wanted to. My mother-in-law would make sly comments about how her son stopped taking care of her since he got married. Not once did I respond because it would have been a war if I had. I always found a good way to ignore what she said. My mom trained me to be generous and thoughtful, and it was seen in how liberal she was. She didn't expect anything from me and was always so overjoyed whenever we got her a gift or gave her money. When she came visiting, she always brought something along, and when the kids were with her, they would tell us how they had fun with Grandma. My mother-in-law was different. If she was going to watch the kids, she asked for money to buy them stuff. Our kids didn't know this, and it was better that way because we wanted them to see her in the best light. This went on for a while until my husband noticed the difference between my mom and his. He realized that his mom wasn't entitled to his money, and he had to put his family first. He came up with a monthly allowance for his mom since he couldn't cut off entirely from giving her money. It was a reasonable allowance that I would be grateful for if I got it. That was free money that she didn't have to work for. Of course, she wasn't happy that, getting money from her son was now reduced to an allowance, but she had to deal with it. It was either she took it or nothing. I was proud of my husband for standing firm. I knew he had that backbone in him. My husband just told me that his mom asked for an increase in her monthly allowance because she was tired of the chum change he was giving her and deserved more as she was his real family. I had never seen my husband as upset as he was when he narrated the conversation to me. He felt exploited by his mother, and I agree that that was what she was doing. She was greedy, stingy, and ungrateful. All of these qualities in one person cannot be good. As calmly as he could, my husband explained to her that although she was his mother and he loved her very much, his first priority was now his family. He had a wife and kids, a mortgage to pay, and a lot of other things. He told her that we had a specific project that we had been saving up for, so he couldn't increase her allowance at this time, which was true. My mother-in-law did not have it. If only she knew that her behavior was tarnishing her image. The more she complained, the more confident my husband was in his decision to not give her more money. She said some hurtful things to him. Amongst them was how ungrateful he was, and that she catered for him till he became an adult, and now he was being stupid. She said he had forgotten all the sacrifices that she made to ensure that he got the best. That was not precisely true, because his father paid for almost everything. He also worked in college, and at that time she had started taking his money. That statement broke the camel's back. My husband told her that he would no longer send her any money and that she shouldn't try to reach him or anyone in his family because she was no longer welcome. He told her everything he had noticed about her for years but didn't dare to say. About how greedy she was and only catered to herself at the expense of everyone else, including him. He reminded her of when his dad sent money for some expenses, but she used it on herself. He told her that she repeatedly did that, which was not how a mother behaved. My mother-in-law is the queen of drama. So you can imagine that at this point she was crying. Whenever she cried about something, my husband seemed to go soft on her. But he didn't do that this time. When he usually would send her allowance, he didn't. I was surprised that he could be this tough on his mom. I can imagine that she must have said a lot to him for him to make up his mind this way and not budge. He didn't tell me all the things that she said to him. I didn't mention that my mother-in-law had no filter when she was upset about something. She would just say whatever she could to get to her point and destabilize the other party. Often, she said things that she supposedly didn't mean. After a few days, I think she realized that my husband wasn't joking when he said he would no longer send her any allowance. Guess who she called? Me. I wonder if she thought that I wasn't aware of what was happening before. She greeted me and casually asked for her allowance. I told her that it should be sent to her very soon and I would ask my husband why there was a delay. I didn't want to argue with her, so I played along. As days went by, she kept disturbing me. That was when I told her that she needed to stop asking me for her allowance. She never asked me before, so why is she doing so now? I let her know that my husband's decision was final and she was no longer getting money from him again. You should have heard all the things that she said to me. You would wonder if I was the same person that she was trying to persuade my husband on her behalf. As far as I was concerned, she didn't need an allowance because she worked and earned her own money. With my husband's responsibilities increasing, she wasn't sensitive enough to ask him not to send her any more money. Her greed had driven her loving son to the wall. He had tolerated her for too long. Instead of managing him properly by showing some gratitude, she spoiled everything. My husband was serious about cutting her off. He hasn't spoken to his mom for a couple of months, and I think I'm enjoying it a little bit too much, even though I know it serves her right. I'm not going to lie, it felt so good not having her around all the time. I was no longer hearing her complaints about minor things. It was bliss. My mother-in-law told my husband's extended family lies about me. She told them that I made my husband abandon her and had succeeded. She spun the whole story around and made it look like she was the victim. She never mentioned the part that she played in the whole situation. Several family members called me to tell me how terrible I was. They had known my husband to take care of his mother, so I must have gone the extra mile to make sure that their relationship was destroyed. I don't have the words to explain how inhumane they treated me. I could tell that they didn't know the whole story, and their version was twisted. There was not much I could do to make them see me differently. They had already made their conclusions and said every hurtful thing that they could possibly think of me. I had a good relationship with some of them, so I was shocked that they would just believe my mother-in-law without hearing my side of the story. I also didn't know some of the people that called me. Those were easier to let go of because I couldn't put a face to the name. It was bearable. My husband was annoyed at his whole family, especially his mother for making everyone gang up against me. It baffled me that she thought that hurting me would make my husband reconsider her. That was absurd because it only made him not want to have anything to do with her in any way. He wanted to put a stop to all the harassment coming to me, so he decided to go visit his mom. He told her about how she had no right to mess with me the way she did, and that what annoyed him the most was that she didn't care that she did something wrong. She had been exploiting him for as far back as he could remember. Still, in getting everyone to come against his wife, she left out that detail which was actually the meat of the matter. Since his conversation with his mom, we haven't looked back and stopped attending any family functions. My husband was fine with us living on our own, without any family around us from his side. My mom and other family members on my side were incredible people. We often celebrated together and were there for each other. NTA, you didn't do anything wrong. Your husband just needed to know where his priorities are. Mothers should not be expecting a ton of money from their kids, especially if they still work. NTA, your mother-in-law is crazy. What parents expect their children to pay them an allowance monthly? It's good that your husband was able to stop them from harassing you. Family members, a lot of times, don't know when to mind their own business. NTA, Your mom is the actual AH. She wouldn't even buy things for the kids, but instead asked you guys for money? Yo, you guys should have cut her off a long time ago.
Next story.
My mother-in-law is a serial MLMer. She was in 5 different MLMs in the last 3 years. Right now, she's in the company Prove It, which sells ketones that are very basically pre-workouts. She tries to get everyone she meets to try some. I refuse every time because I already have health problems and I don't drink any stimulants which give me a good excuse to not support the business model. Well, last time we went to her place with my stepdaughter, her granddaughter, for the family lunch. She gave her juice. When SD was halfway done with it, she went and took a selfie with her, asking her to pose with her thumbs up and her glass of juice in shot. I saw the picture on Instagram with a quote that said, "Prove it is good for the whole family. DM me to try it for yourself," or something like that. I was pissed. The ingredients are pretty much the same as Red Bull, and she gave that to a 5-year-old without asking my fiance or me if it was okay. I flipped out. I grabbed the glass of juice, emptied it in the sink, and started to tell her how unhealthy and dangerous it could be for a child that young to drink this type of thing. She was not having it. She told me I didn't know what I was talking about. I did do quite a bit of research of the products, and I was being unsupportive and a negative energy in her life if I can't support her promoting her business. I told her that she was in a pyramid scheme and that I, in fact, do not support the business. She asked us to leave. There was about 10 people around the table and everyone was too stunned to say anything. We packed our things and left. The next day, she was texting my fiancé about how humiliated I made her feel by discrediting her in front of her guests and how disappointed she was that he didn't stand up for her. He told me I could have waited to be alone with her instead of doing it in front of everyone. I was just so pissed in the heat of the moment that, 1, she would use her 5-year-old granddaughter to sell her overpriced pre-workout, and 2, would actually make her drink some. AITA? Absolutely not waiting. She is 5. A mother-in-law had no business giving that to her or using her in her marketing. Not for nothing, but if it was me, mother-in-law's Insta, especially if there are any other pictures of SD up involving selling the product, would find its way into the lap of the corporate. At worst, they do nothing. At best, she gets booted from the program. You can also make it clear you wish to remain anonymous. Shit happens, you know. NTA. I thought about it quite a bit. In the past, she used pics of her with several MLMs and even used some pictures of the children she was taking care of, as she used to run a daycare nursery. NTA. Obviously, your husband should be more concerned about how easily his mother falls for MLM scams than sheltering her ego. Even if her MLM was pushing products that were made for children, it's still inappropriate to use her grandchild to push her products without consent. The fact that those things are pumped full of ingredients that are not meant for child consumption and she still coerced your kid to drink it and post for a picture is honestly horrific. I wouldn't allow my kids to ever be alone with her again. He is very concerned, but every time he tries to talk to her about it, she tells him that he's just unsupportive and negative. He doesn't want to ruin his relationship with her, so he learned to just let her be until she realizes she lost too much money and quits. Then we help her out for a while, and once she's back in a good place, she falls right back into another MLM. It's a vicious cycle. We can't fight if she doesn't want to get out of it, I guess.
Next story.
Good day, guys. I'm a 19-year-old guy, and here's how it all started at the end of college, October 2021. My mother, M, offered me some work to do under her as a herd tester. In exchange, she would pay me in between $25 to $35 an hour, depending on the client, and would let me utilize a company ute so long as I used it for work purposes. Now, an important thing to know is that M's business had an agreement within another business. I'll call it HQ. Basically, what M's business did was it went out to its clients to get milk samples from the client's cows. She would then deliver the samples to HQ to get tested. Then HQ would send the results back to the client. Well, starting around January 2022, M started saying that she could only pay me whenever the clients pay their bills. Now, since I had heaps in my savings, I thought it was okay since I was still in the green, financially speaking. By March, though, HQ gave me an offer to work as a private contractor under them to get samples from different area than M's, as there were new clients there and no one was covering their area. In exchange, they'd give me a house, a retainer that would pay all my rent, insurance, and phone bills, and they'd give me a new company ute under the HQ banner. They offered me this as they were sick of M not being reliable, and they planned to stick with my reliable reputation that I had earned. I took this offer straight away, and since March 2022, I have gained double the clients as I initially intended and have been growing rapidly since then. Now, M was obviously pissed that her own son had ditched her business and went to start a rival one in a different area. I started receiving calls about me being a traitor, and how could you do this to your own mother? Now, honestly, I could have forgiven her for this because she helped me get my car, paid for by the money she paid me before, helped me when I needed work and everything, so I was basically being a pushover with her until she mentioned about not having to pay me. That was a big no-no. But by this stage, she had barely paid me since January. All up, she owes me approximately $4,500 of income. This immediately turned me the wrong way, and a lot of things were said, and she claimed that I wasn't her employee and that she didn't legally have to pay me since I no longer worked for her. Then I started bringing out how illegal that would be since I have proof of her signing all my times and I have all the paperwork to conclude how much she has to pay me. There wouldn't even be a case. She ended the call daring me to take her to court because I'll have to pay her for wasting the court's time and that they'll laugh me out of court. Now, I'm in a ditch. I just don't want to give up on the $4,500 that I worked on, and I plan to go to Canada for a vacation with that money. Would I be the a-hole if I took her to court for my well-earned money? NTA, take her to court. Due to the amount, you can likely just file yourself in small claims court. ETA, while you would not be the a-hole for doing this, definitely take the time to consider the impact this will have on your relationship with your mom, and if that is a sacrifice you're willing to make.